Hey, folks, I decided I would record something probably 5 to 10 minutes. I've been inspired by talking to a number of folks who've been asking me questions. And again, this might not be the most coherent sort of mini lecture because I don't have any notes in front of me. I'm doing this off the top of my head. But it's trying to help you guys understand sort of what shifted within the South's psychology that made it so paranoid that by late 1860, it's willing to break from the Union and to break really this whole Republican experiment. So we can certainly think about what happened in the Mexican-American War after the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, cool name, in terms of, this Mexican cession and the territory that is really up for grabs. Is it going to be slave land or is it going to be free soil? And that really introduces this question of like, who's going to get the land? Now, there've been plenty of questions about slavery and territory throughout American history, but sort of at the timing of it all in 1848, after Northerners complained that this was just a war fought for Slavocracy and designed for the South to get more cotton land, this became a really sort of crucial question. And certainly we saw the Wilmot Proviso try to prevent the land from going slave. That didn't work out. We saw the Free Soil Party emerge in terms of trying to, again, keep slavery out, and the Free Soil Party didn't have that much success. But then you get to 1850 when California asked to be admitted, and this, gives an opportunity for sort of the North and the South to come together to try to figure out some sort of compromise. And again, popular sovereignty is sort of the compromise in a compromise in the Utah and New Mexico territories. And sort of that becomes the way to answer that question. But the two other big pieces are the fugitive slave law and the admission of California as a free state. Now, the admission of California as a free state is really, really important because the South is already paranoid that at some point in time, the North is going to try to take away slavery. Remember, they were concerned about that so much that they tried to nullify a tariff, which they thought if a tariff can be shoved down our throat, then ultimately slavery can be taken away. They were concerned in 1831 about, Nat Turner's rebellion and what William Lloyd Garrison was saying about immediate emancipation in the Liberator. So when they see California potentially going to be a free state, they want something in return. And so something they've always wanted is a stronger fugitive slave law. There'd actually been a fugitive slave law going all the way back to the 1790s. But now, almost 60 years later, they want a real one. So they're willing to actually trade that. Okay. California is going to, increase the North's power in the Senate, and we're going to get this stronger fugitive slave law. But in the end, the North just refuses it. It openly defies it. So, Massachusetts effectively says it's null and void in our state. They nullify it. There are personal liberty laws that are passed that basically say you can't use our jails in order, to house slaves that we're sending back to the South. And so the North looks at this and says, well, this is the one major part of the Compromise of 1850 that we got, and they're not following the rules. Again, they're against slavery, which is just another sign that in their mind, at some point in time, if the North got all the power, they would take away slavery. Then you get Uncle Tom's Cabin, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe, 1851, 1852, as the book comes out. And again, it's like totally ripping on slavery. And people in the North love it. And people in England love it. And people in France love it. And the South says again, look, they're against slavery. If they get a chance to take it away, they will. Now, we can then jump ahead to really what happened as a result of, Kansas and Nebraska. So the Kansas-Nebraska Act allowed for popular sovereignty in Kansas. No one cared about Nebraska because that couldn't grow cotton anyway. But this is supposed to be a win for the South. But even after all of the fighting that goes on, when Kansas actually tries to submit, their constitution to the government, even though it was the choice in Kansas was slave or slave, Stephen Douglas helps get it rejected. So they say, well, look, none of that even worked for us. And then Dred Scott in 1857, the decision comes down that is an even bigger win that says there can be no prohibition of slavery in the territories. That is amazing for the South. And the North basically says, we disagree. And then that Republican Party that was formed in 1854, their platform in 1860 is straight up like against the Dred Scott decision. So the South just keeps saying again, 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 they're not playing by the rules. We're not getting what's fair. With the subtext being at some point, they're going to take away slavery. Now, we can look at in 1858, Stephen Douglas really sort of ruins his chances of the presidency. by continually going pop sov over Dred Scott. And, that's not going to really play out until 1860, but he can't even be trusted. So they're like, look, even our guy who's the most powerful senator of the Democrats, and the Democrats are more powerful in the South, he's not on our side. And then, of course, John Brown marches into Virginia after having killed people in Kansas in 1856, and he's going to try to lead a slave rebellion. And as was, I think, really prominently said in Third Period's Throwdown today, like him coming into the South to try to lead a rebellion of slaves to basically take over their masters, that is the embodiment, that is the personification of everything that the South has said, the North is all about. So then Abraham Lincoln is elected. It doesn't matter so much as Abraham Lincoln, but it is the Republican president that is elected. This is a party that is a Northern party. Now, for the first time, we don't have parties that have a North and South branch, sort of like the Northern and Southern Democrats, or the Northern Conscience Whigs and the Southern Conscience Whigs versus the Southern Cotton Whigs. Now we've just got the Northern Party, which is the Republicans, and sort of the Southern Party, which is the Democrats. And because this party, the Republican Party, the Northern Party, gets elected, the South feels like that is truly the sign that slavery is going to be taken away. Now, to be fair, the Republicans never said we're going to take away slavery where it exists. They said we don't want it to expand into the territories. But the South thought if a Northern party that is anti-slavery gets power, just wait, they're going to come take away our slaves. So all of this is just a giant pity party that the South threw, saying, because of the paranoia, because of our fear that they're going to take away slavery, we've got to jet, we've got to break away, because this is just not our country anymore. Now, throw in the fact that in 1857, the Panic of 1857 showed how cotton could really weather the storm, and King Cotton truly was king. They said, you know what? We're not going to be part of your country because you're not, because at some point you're going to come take away our slaves. And we've got the most, prized commodity. So again, hopefully that helps you guys understand really what the South was all about. It wasn't just about them being worried about not being able to expand into the territories. It was their ultimate fear that at some point the North was going to take slavery away. And they used all these different cues from the 13er to sort of prove that point to themselves, until South Carolina finally took the plunge after Lincoln was elected, and a number of Southern states followed soon thereafter, and they formed the Confederate States of America. Oh, and I guess I would be remiss if I didn't talk about what's on the screen right now, which is, of course, Preston Brooks beating, William Sumner, which, again, in 1856, the crime against Kansas was, a powerful senator standing up in the Senate talking about just how bad slavery was, which is just another reason that the South was convinced that the North was someday going to take slavery away. All right, folks. Hopefully that helped. Later.